I know it's hard, Toby. Trust me. I understand, but I promise you it will get better, she said softly. When is he gonna leave? Toby said with the innocent tone in his shaky voice. Connie let her gaze fall into her feet. I don't know, honey. He's staying as far as I know, she replied. Toby didn't respond. He just continued to look forward at the wall, holding his damaged arm near his chest. After a few minutes of silence, his mother sighed before she leaned in to kiss his cheek and stood up to walk out of the room. Good night, she said as she closed the door. The hours passed slowly and Toby couldn't quit tossing and turning. Every time he let his imagination take over, he heard the screeching of tires, the screaming of his sister, and he could uncomfortably jerk in bed. He threw off his covers, laying on his back, pulled his pillow over his face, and cried into it. He could felt his chest rise and fall as he let out each shaky breath. As he cried. He could hear his own pitiful weeping. He would have been screaming and crying if he didn't press his pillow over his face. After a few seconds, he threw the pillow off his face as well, sat up, hunched over, holding his head and breathing roughly, tears streaming from his eyes. He couldn't help but cry. He tried to keep it in, but he couldn't help but whine and whimper as he sat there shaking. He inhaled before he stood up and walked around his bed to the window and peered out, taking deep breaths, trying to calm down. He rubbed his eyes and looked out at the group of tall pine trees across the street. He stopped suddenly and his gaze slowly entered on something standing under the streetlight. He heard ringing in his ears, and he couldn't look away. The figure stood beside the streetlight, about 2 feet shorter than it is, long arms wrapped at its side as it stared up at him with non-existing eyes. The figure had no features whatsoever. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Yet it held Toby. His hypnotized stare seemingly peering into his very being. The ringing in his ears grew louder and louder each second he stared before suddenly it all went black. The next morning, Toby woke in his bed. He felt different. He wasn't tired at all. And when he consciously woke up, it felt like he had been lying there awake for hours. He had no thoughts flowing through his mind. He sat up slowly and stumbled over to the wall, but when he stood up, he felt dizzy. He stumbled to the doorway and walked downstairs. His parents were sitting at the table. His father was in tube with a small TV that sat on the countertop, and his mother reading in the newspaper. She quickly looked over when she felt Toby's parents looming behind her. Well, good morning, sleepyhead. You've been asleep forever. She greeted him with a hesitated smile. Toby slowly looked over at the clock and noticed it was 12:30 p.m. I made your breakfast. It got cold. I was going to wake you up, but I felt like you needed sleep. Her expression fell from happy to worried as her son responding to her, Are you alright? Toby stumbled over and sat by his father. He felt as if he was an idol and had no control over his action. He was seeing everything he did, but it didn't seem being properly. He reached out his father's arm, but his hand ended up getting slapped, and his father turned to him abruptly and pushed his chair and over to his foot. "Don't touch me, boy," he yelled. His mother stood up. "All right, knock that off. That is the last thing you need." The days went by and things continued as they were. Connie spent most of her time cleaning up the house, and her rude husband spent most of his time ordering her around. It was just how it used to be before the crash. Toby never really left his room. He would sit by his bed and tremble. His mind would wander, but his thoughts changed as fast as he could remembered. He would pace around his small room like a caged animal, or stare out the window. Like the unhealthy struggle continued. Connie continued to be pushed around by her husband, being way too submissive and to him, and Toby remained in his room. But before he could think twice, he began to chew on his hands, tearing the flesh from his fingers. He would gnaw his hands until they bled. When his mother walked in on him while he was doing so, she reacted horribly. She rushed him downstairs and grabbed the first aid, wrapping his hands in it. She demanded that he wouldn't leave her sight from then. He isolated himself so much that he grew to hate being around other people. His memory grew glitchy as well. He'd start missing memory of minutes, hours, days, and so on. He would begin talking nonsense about things completely unrelated to conversation. He'd gone off about seeing things, sharks, and things as he washed the dishes, hearing crickets and pillows, and seeing ghosts outside the bedroom window. All of the nonsense landed him in a counselor's office. His mother grew anxious about his mental health.